And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to Fake Whale. Today's guest, we have Boss, also known as Ganbrood. What's up, man?
Hey man,
Nice to see
how
you
are you?
again. A little background for everybody. Me and Boss met in London like midsummer last year around for the Proof of People event. And we had a chance to hang out and talk a little bit at Anka Kulti's flat, which was a really great little after party we got to hang out at. So I really enjoyed those talks, and I've wanted to speak with you a little bit more ever since, So this was a perfect opportunity. So thank you very
Good.
much for being here.
Thank you
Um,
for inviting me.
Absolutely. I have man, there's so many questions, and it's hard to start, especially with the topic of artificial intelligence, AI, art being so hot right now, I guess. But I kind of want to avoid some of the more banal aspects of all that of the bullshit, like that everybody's talking about. And actually, just start really with you. I pulled this straight from your website, which I absolutely loved. At the moment, I am reevaluating my role as a photographer for my generative adversarial network images. Please see blah blah blah. So I'm curious about this. At the moment, I am reevaluating my role as a photographer. So I'm interested. Like, were you a traditional photographer for a long time? Is that your background, or like what is your artistic background before all this AI stuff?
Okay, well, yeah, I for the last 14 to 15 years I was a professional photographer. Although I have kind of put an end to that 2 years ago. As soon as I went on the NFT market and found a way to make a living with my new work, which is AI based. Everything is I do is rolls out of these neural networks that are trained on images. Um, and before I became a photographer, I already had a history in CG. I was a 3D animator in the early 90s, worked on a lot of commercials, but also film and networks and that kind of stuff. So I have a very, very digital background. I never photographed analog, to be honest. Um, that was just not for me. But I was already doing Photoshop for 7, 8 years when the digital cameras came uh, out,
Hmm.
were shops, and I thought it was it was not too difficult to pick one up and start photographing something that I always wanted to do, but always was a little bit afraid of the whole thing with the film and the development and all that crap. So
I totally feel you, man. Like I think I felt the same way about photography for the longest time. But I was proficient within Photoshop long before I ever touched a digital camera. Um, so that's really interesting to me that your background isn't actually in like photography specifically, but that photography was actually kind of just a technology that came in your path of working. I can really appreciate that. Um, and you were doing like CG and stuff early in the 90s and everything. It all makes sense. So when it comes to photography and you were photographing things, what sort of subject matter were you dealing with?
um, mostly people and atmosphere, but everything was kind of documentary style, reportage, very true to nature. I didn't like to direct. I didn't like to stage. Didn't like to set up things.
Hmm.
Even a portrait. I try to even take my portraits very au natural and never. I hardly used flash or anything like that.
Hmm.
So natural light, locations, yeah.
I really feel that. Like, I do photography now. I do client work here and there. I do model shoots and stuff. And in the worst parts, so like, I really actually the worst part of it all for me is like the setup of the lights and stuff. It's just like I just don't fucking want to deal with lighting. Like, can we just? Like, I can't stand it, And I do envy those photographers though that can really do magic with lighting in a studio,
Sure.
because there really is a magic to that. But as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned, I'm much more of a documentary style in almost all of my practice, but like definitely when it comes to photograph, video work, it's very documentary style. Like I'm more interested in like the natural occurrence of what's happening than like manufacturing some event to capture. I'm sure you're familiar with that feeling.
Yeah.
Were you doing commercial work with that, with the photography?
No, no, not really. With the photography, never. Well, almost never. I was just doing magazines, newspapers, that kind of stuff,
Okay,
uh,
right on.
and also some corporate stuff, but always never too commercial. So
And I'm curious then, just kind of jumping around here a little bit about like what, I kind of understand it, but I've never actually had somebody just like flat out just say an explanation. But you use the term quite a bit, post photography. You find
yeah.
yourself in like this, yeah. So like, could you maybe just give a general definition of what you consider post photography to be for anybody who wouldn't know?
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, post photography is just anything that comes after the profession of photography, after the technique of photography. So photography is in both its digital and analog form is just capturing photons from the actual world and putting them in an image. Kind of compiling this image from photons. And after, I mean, we could do this more than 100 years ago already. I think the camera is about 150 years old or something. And since then, we have found all these ways to either synthesize this process or completely build on this technique and use digital and other technical advancements to enhance this in base photon capturing. So when I started doing AI work, I worked with models that were purely or almost purely trained on photography. One of the oldest commercial or open source models that you could find was Big Gan, and that was, I think it was Google's, and it was trained on 1,000 categories of different household objects and vehicles and animals and fruits and only photographs. And nowadays we have Midjourney and DALL-E and Stable Diffusion, who are in a large part trained on art of others, of artists, of paintings, on drawings, on photography, but art photography. So not the kind of photography that these older models were trained on. And as a photographer, I clearly saw that this new technique of image synthesis by deep learning neural networks was very, very connected to photography in many ways. And I didn't coin the term post photography because there's a lot written about using photography, but then building on and advancing the technique, and even like stuff like you do yourself, like photo
Yeah.
collage, like cutting paper or prints and gluing them, and those are all post photography techniques. But AI is in a big way, in many ways, post photography.
This is a topic I'm super, super interested in. Post photography in general, even before AI, I was interested in the topic just because of I guess with collage work, and before taking photos myself, I questioned a lot, what I was doing. I felt that I was making significant work, but I was taking photos that I didn't take the photos myself, which led me down a path of really like philosophically thinking about that. Philosophically thinking, well, the photographer took the photo, but the thing that they took the photo of existed already. So like,
Yeah.
what's really going on here? What am I actually using? Am I using that moment, that scenario, and building off of that scenario, or am I stealing this photo from somebody?
Yeah.
And then I got really interested in the artwork of like Richard Prince, who's dealing a lot with copyright and stuff like that. And then I remember seeing Jerry Saltz years and years ago make a tweet that said, uh, photography is material, artists use material. And it was as simple as that. I was like, that makes sense to me. Because to
Yeah.
me, photography in and of itself isn't, it can be an end, but it's used. It's not, it's not, it's a documentation of something that existed. Like who owns a photo? It's difficult for me to philosophically get to the end of who owns a photo, because it's like who owns that moment, who owns the person in the photo, who owns the stuff in the photo, like ownership in photography is really, really interesting to me.
Yeah.
So like in what you were saying at the beginning of this about this photon gathering has existed for a long time, which is funny to me to break it down into such a thing as photon gathering, because then it really makes it seem like you're just harvesting something that already exists out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and then we manipulate it, so like as an artist myself at this point, I'm no longer give a shit. I guess I'm to the point of post photography of, or like I'm a post photographer myself, where it's just like I don't give a fuck where the image came from. It's what I do with it. That's
Sure.
what
Sure.
matters.
Yeah.
So like, what are your feelings about all of this? Like if you have any, or if I'm making any sense even.
No, you do. Well, I photographed a lot of events, and usually people came to me and said, "Hey, I saw you take a picture of me, and here's my card. Please send this picture to my email address, and I'm probably going to use it for something." And that was always a bit weird, because there was like the law says that I completely own the
Yeah,
photograph.
yeah.
But then people intuitively, everybody who didn't know this was a law, they all thought, okay, well, I'm on the photograph, so you have to give it to me, because if there's anyone who is the owner of the photograph, it's me, because it's my face, and I own my face. So that
I
already
own my face.
started some kind of philosophical ideas about ownership and portrait rights. And the funny thing is, as soon as you're famous, and if you're an actor or a famous soccer player, or if a large part of your income is making money with your own face, which some famous people can claim, they can also claim the portrait rights to their photographs. So it's getting kind of gray there, but it's an immensely interesting kind of field.
What
And
Yeah, on the other hand, though, it seems like the more famous a person is, the more easily you can use their images and artwork and get away with it, because it's like public domain or something. It's like they don't even own their own image anymore, because it's become so synonymous with pop culture or something, that
well,
it's just like,
yeah, I know what you mean. What I always find very interesting is the way that someone like Andy Warhol took these photographs of Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley, and just turned them into these paintings, which weren't actually paintings,
no,
because
there
they
was
were
screen prints.
it was screen prints. And he just stole the photographs. I mean, there was
Yeah, they weren't
there
his
was an original
photographs.
photographer that was just bypassed. And I really like the fact that it's that the ethics on these are very unclear, and it looks like artists can get away with anything. And
Well,
it's
there was Andy Warhol did get sued for
sure, I know, yeah,
yeah, and specifically I know of one for sure. It's for that flower one. He got sued by the woman who took the photo of the flower, and I believe he lost. And he famously said after that, "I'm never using anybody else's photos again." But
okay,
then, but that was in America at least. So international copyright law, I have no idea. Honestly, I just like I'm like I don't. screw that.
I don't
But
think there is any international copyright law. It doesn't work like that.
yeah, I've heard people try to say there is, and I'm just like, I mean, I don't even know if there's real copyright law at all anymore. But um, that was pre-fair use when Andy Warhol got sued. In
Yeah,
America, we have fair use now. So if you can argue that you've changed the context, you've changed the meaning, you've done any number of things, which it can be so minuscule, you can get away with it. And now artists you can get away with almost anything, like you said, with if they have a good concept behind it. It
yeah,
seems like. Um, and the idea of the photo ownership and like who owns the photos, I mean, it still goes on today where models get upset that they're not compensated for their image when an artist will go on to use an image, or a photographer will use a model's image and go on to use it, and it will blow up into something big, and then the model, you find out like, I didn't even get paid or whatever. And it's all super interesting to me, and I don't know what the answers are. I feel like
no,
it's like almost like personal ethics need to take over, because there's no real like law that's gonna hit that nail on the head.
no. But it's every. That's a funny thing about AI because it's so brand new. Every judge doesn't know what they're dealing with and how to react on this. I just read a story about an artist doing a comic book purely with Mid-Journey images, and tried to get a copyright, tried to get a registered as the ownership, and it was denied. And
Really?
they said we can't give you ownership of something a machine made, which is kind of weird when you think that every photo camera is a machine, and
Yeah.
people are making art with that, and having the ownership. And so it's but for
Damn.
me,
Yeah.
to keep my feet on the ground and to stay sane, I do a lot of comparison. I use the camera, the photo camera, as a metaphor, or as a I compare every AI question with what should we do in the same case with a
Okay.
camera, with a photography. And 9 out of 10 times that kind of works. It gives me a clear answer.
Okay, great. I mean, we're getting into this now. That's with the AI and the copyright. I've heard so many things. So like, to give an overview to people who might be a little unfamiliar with what's going on, and I guess I don't even know fully, but as you said, a lot of the new models are being trained on like artist artwork and art photography and stuff like that, and that has become a topic of conversation, and to say the least. I was in Twitter Spaces with a few people. One of them being Icky. Do you know Icky? I don't what his real name is even. He goes by Icky on Twitter. ICKI. Anyways, he threw me the question of like dealing with copyright already with collage, and how that may relate to what's going on with copyright and AI, because the people who are making the models for like Mid-Journey and shit like that, right? They're the ones people are saying are responsible, that need to be more ethical in the way that they're sourcing what goes into their models, because at the moment they're taking copyrighted work and putting it into their models, and what the outputs are now is this gray area of like, well, what is it in the end? Like, is that copyright infringement? Is the end product? Well, it doesn't seem like it would be, but like, where is the copyright infringement along these lines? Who bears the responsibility of that? um and just all the pitfalls of that. What is it, do you think, where are you thinking within all of this, where the responsibility lies?
Okay, well, I have been working with these systems for over 4 years now, and so I've been doing a lot of thinking about this.
And
I
I guess
think,
before, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah,
before you
sure.
even go into it, just for everybody who's listening again, who might not be super familiar, you have built most of your own. So like, you're not really part of what we're talking
No,
about
no,
right now.
I,
Yeah.
that is a misconception.
Oh,
I I always try to make it look like it's different from anybody else's, but I use the same open source stuff that anybody does.
but when I was reading about your like historical portraits, you were taking things and putting it into your own models.
Not
Like they
my own
were,
models, no.
well, okay, you were using your own source material and putting it into the model.
Yeah, but even the source material was usually not my own. So
Yeah, yeah,
if I did a recreation of Napoleon or Jesus or Cleopatra,
yeah.
I just use ready available source images, put those in an existing open
Hmm.
source model, and kind of combined and stacked all these different applications at the time that were able to do something that you could call AI or and
But I guess what I meant was just that you were aware of everything that was going into the model for the most part. Like you were
um,
aware of.
well, that's the funny thing with AI. These the models are trained on millions of images, even billions at the moment, and there is this black box, and nobody knows exactly what's going in. I mean, what's going in? There are lists of databases. You can maybe see what's going in, but that runs into billions of images, and everybody can see what comes out, but nobody knows exactly what's happening inside the black box. That's just the way
Nobody.
nobody. That's just the way deep learning works. So we we made these algorithms and we just taught them to teach themselves. And we don't know exactly how they do it. There are some theories, some ideas, but whether it's for a self-driving car, recognizing people on the road, or some X-rays being diagnosed by an AI for looking for tumors, we don't know exactly what's in what their decision making is built on.
I don't even know what to fucking say about that.
Well, I just gave you these examples because they're all part of the same technique. It's all the
It's
same structure
crazy.
in the way
Yeah. I don't
AIs.
even, what does that mean? Like you don't know how they do it. Like you can't go back and just look. You can't like somehow like okay, like I can understand not
Yeah, yeah,
programming it to do it, but after it's done, can't you go back and look what happened?
no,
Okay. I'm
no,
not a
because
tech person, so yeah.
no, because that's just not the way it works. It's so we make these algorithms that are capable of synthesizing images. They can create images, and they do this based on what they have learned themselves. By we just put this structure, uh, put it there, and then give them a million images, and then these networks, these neural networks, they look at all the images and then they find these laws which allow them to synthesize a new image, and we don't exactly know what these rules and laws are
But it's kind of
because
like pattern recognition.
it's mainly pattern recognition, but there's much more involved, and
Mhm.
it's very obscured. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so attracted to AI, because I'm a very rational guy. I'm a very skeptical guy. I don't believe in anything, but this comes as close to magic as anything I've ever witnessed.
I want to go back to the thing that that
It's the
sparked all this.
witch's brew, man.
There's so much. It's so rich. This is such a rich conversation. But I'm gonna go back and just real quickly, like where I guess not real quickly, even it's not good. But where does the responsibility lie in like who's programming this and like where the
Okay.
user, the programmer, the responsibility of this copyright, which again, I don't even really believe in this idea of copyright fully. It's kind of a
Yeah.
personal ethics idea, but for those who do, and where for those in this debate, what side do you take, or what stance do you take on the responsibility of what's going into these GANs, and if it's crossing the line?
Okay. Well, we just talked about Andy Warhol not giving a shit where he got his source material from. I think almost every artist in the history of mankind has, one way or another, let his work be inspired, or their work be inspired by other artists, by nature as well, but
Or
also by.
even a painting that was after a photo. You painted something from a photo, and it looks just like the photo, but it's
Yeah.
a painting. The same thing.
Yeah, but also paintings that were made 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. Also, a cave painting maybe made by an artist who saw another cave painting.
Hell
I mean,
yeah.
that's
Okay,
just
I love it.
that's what
Yeah.
we do. We're monkeys. Monkey see, monkey do. Um, we like to copy each other. We like to, but also pay homage. And
Mhm.
there's so many different, and satire, and there's so many different ways we copy each other, and especially in art that constantly happens. And I don't think people are. Nobody's interested in something that is 100% new. You want to see a fresh look on something you already know.
Isn't that the
That's
truth, man? Yeah.
that's with music. That's with art. That's with anything. It's even with people. I mean, you don't want to fall in love with a person that is doesn't is completely not like anything you know. They always say the opposite attracts, but I really do believe that you are looking for a large
Mhm.
part for yourself in somebody else.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, so artists get influenced by other artists, and that has always been, and they were even completely obscured, copying each other, and that there are these periods where sometimes it's not done, but usually it was okay to just copy someone. I mean, a cover song in pop music, maybe there's some royalties being paid, but people take their each other's ideas and build upon these, and so it's always been like that. So my question is, why, if we make a machine that does the same thing, that gets inspired by other, I mean, the line kind of is stops where something is like blatant, rip off of something else, when it's clearly a copy of something. But when you create new things out of older things, I don't think there's any problem with that, and I don't see the difference between a human artist, or or an algorithm, or a machine making stuff build on what it has learned on and off other art. So that's kind of my position in this thing. Now, if you talk about artists that are uh, that have a very hard time just making a living, and suddenly get copied by some kid using an algorithm to do their style. I think two things. Of course, that's horrible if that happens. But at the same time, I think those people wouldn't be copied if they weren't original and well known, as and also, I think if you get if the essence of what you do is easy to copy by any algorithm, then that is not so special.
There's a
I don't.
lot of what you're saying that I agree with for sure. What about when people do like I hear the argument of like people saying or typing in, blah 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 in the style of, and then a specific artist, like
Yeah,
that does seem like kind of bullshit, especially if there is a bunch of that artist's work in the algorithm itself. It's just like, and then
sure.
there's the argument that, this argument was made to me long before this, the mass public, because it seems like everybody and their fucking Uber driver is on, fucking Mid Journey these days. But
Yeah,
long before that, people were making the argument of like, well, it's gonna replace illustrators for magazines and for make whatever illustrators are used for anymore,
Yeah.
and that these companies will be able to just go, well, we want something like, I'll use myself as an example. We want Jesse Draxler's work, but we can't afford him anymore. We're just going to go blah, blah, blah in the style of Jesse Draxler and pop that up on the thing.
Yeah. It's, of course, I know these arguments. I see them constantly, and I think about them. But if I started to paint like Vincent van Gogh tomorrow, exactly in the same way, would that be interesting to people? Or would everybody pay the same amounts as they pay for a real Vincent van Gogh? I don't think so. So somehow these. I don't think people will get rich of this. People will. I know in the whole NFT world, and at this point we aren't used to these images. So some people kind of take they kind of well, almost get rich of stealing other people's work. But that can be done with manual as well. And now we have these algorithms that make it a little bit easier to do this. But I don't know. It's in theory, yeah, it's wrong. But give me an example of somebody who made a ton of money just by ripping off somebody else.
I hear you,
This way.
100%.
I mean, it just doesn't happen.
I mean, I agree with you fully. I brought it up, as a devil's advocate question because it's been brought up to me. I'll tell you what my answer was to the person who said it to me. I was like, that's been happening to me for a decade. Like, like magazines already don't want to hire me or pay me. They'll hire their staff to do work just like mine. I see it all
Yeah.
the time. I'm like, I said straight up, I was like, I would rather have the algorithm do it than a person. It feels less invasive or something. It
Yeah.
feels like less shitty. I mean, I'm copied all the fucking time. Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? It didn't take AI to do it.
Yeah, and then there's the saying, I think it was Oscar Wilde, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, that the mediocre can pay to greatness or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember
yeah,
I heard about this phenomenon, and that's one of the first things I did when I got Midjourney was type in like my name, to see if like it knew who I was, and it did, kind of. It surely did. There was,
oh wow,
and I thought that was awesome.
yes,
It was like the opposite of what everybody said. I was like, holy shit, like I'm big enough, like I made it. Like I'm in this fucking thing. Like they thought I was important enough to put in
yeah.
this, because I almost see it as like we should put everything in it, like everything that's important.
It's like being on Wikipedia when you didn't write it yourself.
Exactly. Exact. That was the same feeling when I saw my Wikipedia page. It was the same kind of like honor, like wow, So, okay.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
still waiting
really
for that.
appreciate. I really appreciate. You don't have a Wikipedia page yet? Fuck. Hey, everybody listening to this right now, Ganbrood needs a Wikipedia page. Let's get on that.
Really bad.
Really bad. I actually just I've been debating because I get told all the time, like, we need a longer bio, we need more information for this show,
Yeah.
for this fucking whatever. And yesterday I was just telling someone, I'm like, I'm gonna copy and paste my Wikipedia page. It ain't all right, but at least it's something, like fuck. Like anyways, I appreciate your take on that. I think it's kind of a hot take comparatively to what a lot of people are saying, but I really appreciate. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. One more thing. I was an art director for Sony Computer Entertainment for 3.5
Really?
years.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I worked on video games like Killzone and a little bit on Horizon Zero Dawn and that kind of.
Wow.
So yeah, and I saw these portfolios of applications of people coming in every week. There was a stack of those on my table, and all these young kids, whether they went to some kind of school or were self-taught, they all did the same stupid paintings and digital stuff, like these fantasy, sword and sorcery, sci-fi, cyberpunk, and everything looked exactly the fucking same. And so for me, that's the real horror. Actual people being machines and completely ripping each other off and duplicating each other and having absolutely no idea of what it means to be original or have some kind of signature or put your soul into your work. It's just like that. And then suddenly and if you look, 9 out of 10 people who get so angry about this AI, 9 out of 10 people are these kind of artists that are just that produce a lot of shit, and of course they're afraid that the machine will take their job because they're machines themselves. So I don't think machines can replace actual anything that is in essence human. Yeah, they can replace mechanical behavior, of course, very easily. So that's
I
the
love
last
that.
thing I want to say about
No,
this.
that's great. They can replace mechanical behavior. That's mechanical. Yeah, that's really good, man. Thanks. I mean, I'm with you 100%. I love that. Fuck, something just went through my mind that I loved, and then I laughed too hard at the mechanical behavior because it's so true. I mean, and I'm with you. It's those people that don't have like that spark or something already. They're not doing anything unique or original already, and they're worried about this whatever. I see it like I've used Midjourney. I've used Midjourney a lot. Like I just haven't put anything out there that I've used it for. But I've used it in like sketch phases for commissions where it's like I don't know how to actually make what's in my mind, so I'll just type it in, see what Midjourney thinks it looks like.
Sure.
That's a great way to fucking use it. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
wonderful way of sketching for projects and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I can't remember exactly what I was thinking when you were saying all that, but it's I'm with you for sure. I saw like I was just at Freeze Art Fair here in LA and I saw Jordan Wolfson. Are you familiar with that artist? Jordan Wolfson?
Rings a bell, but no,
He
not.
did the that really creepy dancing female robot in the mirror. It was like
Yeah,
uh
definitely.
so he does work kind of like that. I didn't see him personally, but I saw a piece of his in a booth, and it was a new piece. And upon going up to it and looking further, I noticed like these little elements were made with AI. I could tell like they were made in AI, and I thought that was quite interesting. And I didn't know how I felt about it exactly because I could tell they were unedited outputs from probably Midjourney, and that he cut them out, blew them up, blah blah blah, stuck them on his piece, and whatever. And I feel like more needs to be done to outputs, a lot like what you do. Um, but anyways, I just mean to say like the way that people are incorporated into larger work, I think is the most interesting. When people are just passing off like an output as their finished product is pretty boring, to me at least. But anyways, your take on it, I think,
Well,
is spot
the,
on.
the thing is, if it looks like anybody else's output, then it's boring. But it's not a written. It's not set in stone.
Yeah,
You can use anything. I mean, you can use if you're a true artist, you can use found objects. You can use copied stuff. You can use
exactly.
collage. I mean, there
It's no
is
different.
no, and in
That's
the end, the techniques is just a means to get your idea across, and it's all about concept in the end.
absolutely.
Um, and
Um,
yeah,
I hope to get to a point with it for sure, for my own usage at least. It's not to a place where I like, well, at least the models that I've used are not to a place where I'm comfortable and incorporated into my work because the outputs all look like I can tell it's an output still, but I would love for it to get to the point of making like photographic realistic imagery where I could type in like person sitting on this kind of and get really specific with what I want from a photo and then print them out and then collage them, etc. I mean,
yeah,
that's really
yeah,
exciting to me, and I'm sure at some point we'll be there. But like Midjourney can't make a hand still, so I can't make a
yeah,
perfect hand still. It gets all fucked up. So
yeah,
anyway, I feel like I can always tell a Midjourney output as soon as I see it, and that's really the only like disappointment to me in general with all of AI is that I get really kind of sad when I just see these kind of outputs because it's all pretty banal to me at least. Like even when I saw it on Jordan Wilson's work, I was really bummed. Like, man, you should have done something to that output. Like I get using the output, that's cool, but like do more to that. Like, I
yeah.
don't I don't want to be able to walk up to that and be like, that's a Midjourney output. And like that's in a booth for how much money, blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
Yeah, but you know what the trap of AI is, that you think because it's the threshold is so low, it's so easy to just get it in there and produce something comparable to a photo camera.
True.
Anybody can photograph because they can hold the camera and press a button, but that's not true, because as soon as the threshold gets so low, our standards get really
Yeah.
high.
But that's
Um,
what's going to happen with AI too, right? Yeah, that's what you're saying.
it's already happening, and it's for
Well,
me, as somebody who's been doing almost nothing else for a couple of years now. I think I'm close to that 10,000 hours putting in this thing. Um, it's a constant conflict with what I can and what I can put out, and what I'm satisfied or with or proud of, because there's this extra dimension of um, the whole and then we go philosophically again, but the whole low effort thing is kind of keeping me busy at the moment. Always has from the start.
how high is your standard right now?
um, I think it's pretty high, but sometimes I just have to take the other approach and just kick myself in the butt and say, "Hey, come on, you're too harsh on yourself, because it doesn't have to be." It's it's easy to kind of stray off in some kind of fetishism where the technique gets the biggest voice, in your work,
Hmm.
especially when your work is based on a lot of tech, especially when you're doing this for a long time and you think you're a little beyond most other artists in this field. Then it's a small, but it's a trap. It's there is so much bullshit going on in your brain, as I think, as any artist,
Hmm.
uh,
That's what being an
especially
artist is, just having bullshit in your brain.
especially if you're working with these weird tech gimmicks like AI, because it's a very very any it looks like any idiot can make something nice looking or something profound in AI. But the same thing is true for cameras and photography.
That is
Pho-
true about photography.
Photo, to make photographs is the easiest thing in the world, and that's why to make artistically
Hmm.
interesting photographs is one of the most difficult things in the world, because it's so easy.
Hmm.
That's and the same thing is true for AI.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the future, we'll surely look back, and to use my example again of like Jordan Wolfson's piece at the art fair, it will be viewed as early AI times, and people will
Sure.
see it and whatever. How high is your standard when viewing other AI artists' work right now?
Very high,
Like when you,
very high.
yeah.
Yeah. I a couple of months ago I did curation for with Adam Disbrow for he did do you know Adam? He's
I know that
on Bezos.
name. I know it.
Well, he's
I probably do. Yeah.
yeah.
Not
Um,
personally.
okay, but anyway, he asked me to do collaborate on a piece. He wanted to collaborate with like 10, 12 AI artists, and I don't easily collaborate with anyone. That's just a personal thing. I find my work very very private, very
Hmm.
personal, and I don't easily just work with anyone. So I said, "No, sorry, I'm not going to do that." I tried a couple of times with other people, and it all failed miserably just after in the first phases. And then he said, "Well, maybe you can help me curate, or you curate just the whole floor on this virtual gallery, the crypto voxels. Just get like 10 to 20 AI artists, and I approached some people that were at the time promising, and also some people that were even working with AI longer than me, like Memo Acton or and I found that it wasn't easy. I mean, as a collector, as I'm not, I'm a serious collector, but I'm not so serious that it my own work always comes first. So if I have some time to spare, then I grab a couple of things on Tezos, or but I collected many things in this way. If everything would have been on Ether and very expensive, then maybe my standards would have been much higher with what to buy. But anyway, I was curating this work of all these people, and some people just started like a couple of weeks ago. But it's not always easy to see. You see some work, you think, hey, this is interesting. Somebody has a vision, or somebody has great creative input, or and some of these kind of fell through as soon as I started talking with them, and as soon as I started watching them more closely and seeing what else they came up with, and trying to track their history as an artist, and trying to see what they had to say, what their voice was, what their what kind of and in what way they were expressing some kind of soul, or were just doing some tech demos that look nice. Anyway, right now I maybe have 5 or 6 people that I find interesting
Well,
at this point.
that's a perfect lead, and I was just going to ask you, let's give some shine then to some of the good AI artists, because there is so much bullshit out there. And for anybody who might be listening to this and be on the side of like, AI art is bullshit, it's all bullshit, what are some of the good ones besides yourself? Because as I've been on a panel with you before and everything, I said on the panel, you're actually one of like the only AI artists that I really consider like a true artist, or just like very unique and singular in your practice. But what are some of like the great AI artists, would you say, out there?
Well, I have always been a huge fan of Sofia Crespo.
Oh yes.
And now she works a lot with Felican McCormick,
Yep.
as Entangled Others. I think it's absolutely amazing what they do. They're both creatively and technical. They're at the highest level, always have been, because they have been working longer than almost anyone I know in the field. They're more OG than anyone. And I always feel their work is very special. It's very recognizable. Anytime I see it, I just immediately know it's theirs, although it can change a lot.
Yeah.
So having a signature as an artist is nice, but if all your work looks the same, it's easy to have a signature. It's the most difficult thing is to have very different, a wide spectrum of output there, and still be recognized. I mean, I think that's, yeah.
Amen.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's the same for you. If I see your work, I usually know it's you.
But
Anyway,
I work in like cross so many different things. I get told that all the time, I get like, I work in so many different ways or whatever, but to have a signature across all the mediums, I think is like more, like, to me, I would rather have that than just like do the same thing over and over again. So anyways, yeah, Sophia Crespo, Entangled Others, I've had conversations with them in Miami, I believe, not long ago. Love them. They're great. Well,
well, the older people like Mario Klingemann, Quasimodo, Helena Sarin, those people have. I think Mario is extremely strong on his concepts. He's not so much an aesthetic artist as Sofia Crespo, but he always really thinks about what he's doing, and he's kind of and Helena Sarin has a very distinctive style as well.
I don't know who this is. Helena, did you say?
Helena Sarin, yes.
Okay.
I think she's Russian American. At least she lives in America, and she has been there from the start. I mean, these are both people that started working with AI as soon as anyone could. I'm always jealous about these people that they're working years before I pick this up. And every time when somebody calls me an OG, I go like, oh no, I'm really not, because there are these people that
whatever, man. You're an OG.
So someone who I've been following for some time, who always stayed under the radar until recently, was Roope Rainisto. He's a Finnish guy from Helsinki, and he just did a drop on brain drops on Ether. I think it was 500 pieces, something like living in adventures in West America or something. And they're huge photographical pieces, clearly inspired by Eggleston and some really good American traditional photographers, documentary photographers.
What is it called?
Yeah, you should check it out. His
Okay.
work sold in a few minutes, and it's I think they're amazing. And I don't know if it's just a fluke, if it's just a lucky, or he just established himself as one of the greatest. We have to see what's coming next.
Wow. These are all AI?
Yeah, purely.
Yeah.
And he knows where to randomly generate, curate, and then just does some little post-production. He changes some faces that he and it's very close to the way I work, because I really like to be as procedural as I can be, but I still need to put my stamp on it, and I still need to be the one that's responsible for the end product. So I
absolutely, that's the same how I feel. This guy is amazing. I'm gonna look all these people up or whatever. Well, I know most of them, but like I've interviewed Mario too. That was a great conversation. I loved Mario. I interviewed Mario, same platform with this fake whale, like half a year ago, and within like a half an hour, it was just like I was laughing so hard. Have you had a chance to talk with Mario ever, or like hang out with him?
Not really. I met him and we shook hands, and no, I haven't. But I'll see him in Tokyo.
Oh, nice. He cracked me the fuck up, man. Yeah, and I totally understand what you mean. He's not an aesthetic artist. It doesn't seem like he really gives a shit what that stuff looks like in the end. It's all about how you got there, which I respect. I completely respect that. So, okay, cool. Give some shine to some AI artists there. If people are sick of seeing their friends' Midjourney outputs on Instagram and you want to see some good AI art.
Talking about aesthetics, I feel that I'm always tempted by aesthetics, and sometimes I worry I value aesthetics too much, because it's seen as just an outside of things that really matter. But I'm a sucker for color and composition and atmosphere and style, and always have been.
I'm a sucker for aesthetics too. I'm a sucker for just things that entertain me visually. It doesn't have to have a whole lot of meaning, but if I'm visually entertained, like to me, there's a shitload of meaning just in that. And I agree. To your point, you said you felt bad or something about that, or guilty or whatever about that, or whatever. You wish it wasn't like that. I recently, well, I feel the same exact way. First of all, like often, like aesthetic can be an end to me, even though that's not even an end. There's so much in it. But I was speaking with I wasn't my last interview. Anyways, Lawrence Fuller. You know Lawrence?
Yeah.
Name
Sure.
at least.
Yeah.
And we talked about this quite a bit in his interview. He said the imagination in search of beauty. I thought it was such a beautiful quote, but like he related it to that being visually stimulated is a like completely natural, and we should respect it. We should respect beauty. We all he compared it with nature. Like you bring somebody in the woods, and the first thing they're saying is they're pointing out what's beautiful. They're not pointing out, what's useful or practical or ugly. It's like, this is beautiful, this is beautiful. So for some reason, we have a natural instinct towards beauty. So like when you say that, like, oh, being too aesthetic is like, I'm too, but that's completely, what's wrong with that? We're only made to feel like there's something wrong with that by like the art industry.
No. There's nothing wrong with that. The thing is, it's easy to kind of get lost in this, kind of stray the wrong path, and totally chase these well, not always superficial, but if I think in anything there should be balance.
Absolutely.
I think if I would have been a painter, I would have I didn't have so much confidence in going the aesthetic way, because it's just in my AI I can use this as almost as an excuse to I mean, one of the main reasons that I work with this new technique is that it's super interesting, and that it has depth, because this is what's happening, and this is what we need to evaluate and explore and get into. So one of the reasons, when I would just have a brush and a canvas and some pigments, I would have been probably a very different artist, because I don't feel that painting a beautiful painting, which is just very beautiful, is still of any use in this age. I think you need to. We already had so much of these,
Mm-hmm. No, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much there just because of beauty being completely subjective too. So I mean, we could go on forever, right? But no,
Yeah.
that's super interesting. But I do want to go back now and talk a little bit about this idea of deep learning, what is happening with AI, this magic that you spoke about, and how that's like the closest thing to magic. And also, I wanna bring up this topic, which, because I never heard anybody talk about it. And then over the holidays, I saw an article, and I wish I saved it somewhere, but I didn't pull it back up. But it was talking about how the images are actually assembled. That was, to me, was the most interesting part of AI at first, was like what's actually happening. It looks a lot like these images are being, Photoshop, so like the heal tool. It looked like you could take two images, bring them together, put some healing in the middle, and it looked kind of like that's how it was assembling. Is that's what's happening? And I tried to Google and ask people, and nobody would give me like a straight answer on like the collaging of the images, because I'm a collage artist. I guess I just wanted to know,
Yeah.
how is it collaging these images, and nobody. And then over the holidays, I saw an article where they were touching on this, and it was saying what they used to do and what's coming now, and they were relating, or they were saying it's a physics model, that it's like a physics model that a physics model for gases. So it's like it's using a gaseous physics
Volume.
model
Yeah.
for, yeah. And I found that fascinating. I was like, okay, this is what I'm looking for, because to me it looked a lot like, I said, like when I'm healing, it actually spurred on a series of paintings I was doing digitally, like the healing paintings, where I was like, I'm just going to heal a whole bunch around, and I was getting results that looked something almost like AI art. And people have been saying that even my physical hand cut collages look like AI art, which I always laugh at. So do you know how it's putting these images together, and like that actual logistics of the assembling of the image?
A little bit, because I never wanted to get too deep into this technical backgrounds, because I think it doesn't help me as an artist. One of the reasons that I really like AI is that it kind of whispers soft words in my ear as a synthetic muse, and it just inspires me. It works on my intuitive part, and I always have had a difficult time to kind of suppressing my rational side, because it always made me impotent in many ways, as by with expressing myself creatively. So both photography and AI were ways to use partly a machine in what I'm doing, and the way I'm expressing myself, and that kind of works for me. It took me decades to find that out, and now I'm very happy that I found something that works for me that way. But what I know of, I started with, it was called GAN at the time. It was a generative adversarial network. So think about two different parts of the same network that were constantly competing next to each other. So they could communicate, and one was able to just draw random stuff, and the other one was trained in by looking at images that we fed them. So they were constantly communicating, and one said, does this look like a squirrel? No, it doesn't. Does this look like a squirrel? No, it doesn't. And then constantly guiding each other and steering together as an adversarial network towards an end. And the thing is, it was very inefficient. And somebody at one point said, we need to completely revise this. The idea is great, but this is just taking too much power and too much, it takes too long. And then somebody said, hey, we have these algorithms that we use to sharpen images. So if something is vague and blurry, we can also, with a library of how things could look or should look, tell the sharpen these blurred artifacts to a point where they look like what we know. And now so it's called diffusion. What they do is they just start with a cloud of noise, and and this where it gets really interesting, because when everybody knows, it starts when you're a kid. You're in your room at night, it's dark, and you see all these terrible shapes and creatures in a couple of clothes hanging on your chair. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds familiar. I think everybody had this as a kid, and I still have these things. If you're looking at the clouds,
exactly, I was going to say that. Yeah,
these animals. So there's all these psychological concepts like pareidolia, and what's the other one?
Pareidolia is where you see faces, right, and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and the other one is where you see connections that aren't really there, but you imagine them because they resonate with the patterns that you see. And anyway,
that's like Gestalt theory, right?
Cell theory.
Gestalt theory or whatever.
Yes. That's also very overlapping on this. Anyway, so these algorithms, they produce a lot of noise, and then they try to see where the noise looks like something that is present in their latent space, which is this huge cloud that you were just talking about, this multi-dimensional cloud of possibilities. And they find the nearest point that kind of resonates in their memory, in their synthetic imagination, and then they start guiding the image towards this idea of what it should be. So that's mainly it's a very vague explanation, but this is roughly how it goes. And the funny thing is, they're always talking about artificial intelligence, but in in fact, this is artificial imagination or artificial creativity, because I think creativity is nothing is not really different from imagination. It's to see things that aren't there by having these making these links with everything you know, everything you've learned. You don't make up things you don't know. That's why in every science fiction movie, an alien looks like something like a squid or an insect or something we at least partly know, or a combination of things we know. And if you come up with something that doesn't look like anything, everybody says, "What's that alien in that film that didn't look like that didn't look like anything,
What's
man?"
that blob? What
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Um, within this cloud of possibilities, like you say, is where this magic happens. I'm assuming that you're talking about, where it's just kind
yeah.
of, but I guess like I guess I can deduce, but then when working with a person in this AI and somebody's typing that they want something specific from it, within this cloud of possibilities, it's then doing this comparison of like, okay, this person said they wanted a cat, so I'm going to find a picture of a cat, and like in this cloud of possibilities, what looks like a cat? Is that
Well, they're not looking for a specific picture of a cat they saw. They saw 300,000 pictures of cats,
Mhm.
and because the way our internet is structured, and the way photos usually have tags attached to them, it's easy to tell a computer that a photo of a cat is a cat, because the word cat is somewhere in a lot of these images. So they have seen so many cats, and they just know that you need to have that it needs to have these cat-shaped eyes with the right pupils, and a pattern on their fur, and the big furry, and the pointy ears, who sometimes maybe even lying down, but usually they're pointy. And so all of these concepts are being learned by the, and we can't imagine how much of knowledge, of visual knowledge, these systems have, because it's vast. But it's cats and dogs and monkeys and roses and bananas and everything, and Leonardo da Vinci and Donald Trump and Mickey
Yeah,
Mouse, and so everything is in there. and
it's like
and this is
Noah's
just
Ark.
this is just a start. I mean, they just fed these algorithms a billion images, but in 5 years they will contain every image that is on the internet.
So that's what I thought when I first heard of AI, years and years ago. I was like, it better have every image ever fucking created, otherwise it's nothing. That's what I thought of it. I was like,
Yeah,
otherwise it's meaningless.
yeah,
Like it has to have every image ever, otherwise it's not going to do the right shit. Or it's not going to give us the what we want of it,
yeah. But
kind of.
if you have a standard deck of cards, 52 cards, if you shuffle them,
Sure.
you will end up with a sequence that was never in history like this ever. I mean, the chances, I
Yeah.
mean, it is possible theoretically, but the chances of the same sequence of cards ever existed in history
Hmm.
is practically zero. And for a human mind, it's almost impossible to grasp, because I didn't
Yeah.
believe this when somebody told me. And then I started Googling, and I looked it up, and every scientist in the world says, yeah, sure, because the possibilities are so numerous. With only 52 cards, you have almost endless
Hmm.
possibilities. So yeah, imagine what this can do with a machine learning a billion.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I want to get just a little more personal before we wrap up and everything. But
Sure.
I want to ask you, like, where do you see this going? Like, where does this, like you're saying, in 10 years, how much more imagery is going to be in there, and like, what
Yeah,
is it going to be used for? And like, I'm not too huge on like predictions, because it's
oh
nothing ever works out how we
yeah,
think, because we can't
yeah,
we don't know what we don't know, and like, so that's how I usually think about it. But so when people are like, well, in 5 years, every image, we're not going to know the difference between AI and blah blah, and whatever. And there's these horror stories, and then there's these other people who are like, it's going to save the world, or everything's more beautiful. What is it to you, or like when you?
Yeah, well, I get this question a lot because people think that I should think about this, or I would think about this, and so. But to tell you the truth, I have a hard time just keeping up what happens every other day. I got this friend who's an animator, a very traditional animator. He did Undone on for HBO, and
Yeah,
he did some pretty cool stuff.
yeah, Undone. It's awesome.
Yeah, and he's of course looking into these techniques as a way of producing stuff that he has lying there and could never be made because it was too expensive to hire 200 animators, or also interested because he wants to know if he still has a job in 5 years. And, so we have
way, it could go either way. It's like either it could be amazing and like he has
Yeah.
robots or AI making work for him. That's amazing. Or he's just completely out of a job.
Exactly. So to give you an example, I spoke to him 5-6 weeks ago, and he asked me, how far is this? How far is animation? How far? What can we do? And what? And I promised him to kind of look into the animation part of it. I'm kind of staying back from animation a little bit because I think that's also overwhelming. And I'm very much somebody who fell in love with the still image, with the power of a frozen piece of time. Although I also love movement and animation, and I have a long history as a 3D animator with movement and animation. Anyway, 5-6 weeks ago, I kind of looked around and found that some things were happening, and I have been sending him some progress of what I found on AI redoing filmed little clips of film, and the progress in just 1 month, what came out, where we were a month ago and where we are now, is just mind-blowing. Is mind-blowing because this is how fast it goes. So if anyone asks me, where will we be over 10 in about 10 years, I'll just, I don't know where we'll be in half a year, man.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because if it keeps expanding at this explosive exponential rate, we're gonna be in fucking space. It's too much, even for me.
Well, and what you said though earlier about like how our standards rise, like our standards are probably going to rise at that same speed too, though, right? Like AI will just become like a new, like the internet. Like we're not all just fascinated by the internet anymore. Like, holy shit, you have the internet? It's just be like, it's fucking AI, big deal. Who knows?
But personally, I would imagine something in between a video game and a movie, in VR or in AR, where you constantly, maybe you have to communicate what you want to see. Maybe you just have to think about it. I'm not sure, because they're going pretty fast on capturing some kind of thought as well. And anything you can imagine is just crystallizing right in front of you. And
are you talking about like procedurally generated AI environments?
Yeah.
Wow.
and characters and interactive communication with characters, kind of. I think
That
it's
kind of stuff blows my mind to think
yeah,
like,
but it's as I said, it's too much, man. It's
yeah. I
and
remember this
and it's
procedurally generated video game that I played that blew my fucking mind. I had to actually put it away because I'm like, there's no end to this game. It's you were
yeah,
like flying around space, and as you went, it would just keep on creating itself.
yeah,
And I was like, this is overwhelming. And it was just a
yeah.
video game. I wasn't, you know.
You, you know, I sometimes dream about things or kind of imagine how things will be, and especially when I'm in bed and closing my eyes or um, and that kind of imagination. If I think about this stuff, it hurts. It's just not fun to imagine because it's uh, and I will always be one step behind the development of this. Yeah.
It
So that,
hurts.
if that's the answer to your question.
I get it. I totally get that. That's really funny to me. Um,
Okay, but
okay.
one thing I think because we're very visually oriented species, I think there is a lot to be gained in very interesting music being thought by AI,
Mhm.
fashion, but also maybe recipes. Maybe things will people will just invent new dishes or whole cuisines based on because it's all possible.
That's fun to think about. Like that's kind of something I've never, heard before yet, or like heard yet, which is amazing. But like, yeah, AI recipes, that's wonderful. And then
Candy
we'll
man,
have,
just Willy Wonka
yeah, dude, we'll have
factory,
like
AI's
computer food, like
factory.
the AI can't eat, like has no idea, but it's gonna make us recipes. Now we're eating like computer food, and it like it's crazy.
Yeah,
This is what the computer thought would be good.
yeah,
That's really fucking funny to me. I love that. Like, yeah, we'll see. It's fun, like it's all fun. In general, the people who have the fear or whatever, I don't have the fear of AI at all. Like, because that's another big part of all this. Some people
sure.
fear it for all these different reasons, but like, yeah, I just think that's pretty banal. Like, if you fear it, you must not have a lot. Kind of like we said earlier, you must not have a lot going on. I'm like, um, I want to just touch now on like your own practice, because we did talk a lot about it, but kind of more your philosophical side and then into your post processing. But like you talked about, you have to suppress your rationale side because you feel
Yeah,
that works against creativity. I found that super, super interesting because I think I'm in the same boat a lot of the time. Like, and I need to suppress the rationale even because or even more because you brought that up when I asked about how is it making these images, and I was just like kind of stopped in my tracks. I was just like, I shouldn't care probably. He's right. Like what good is that going to do me knowing that?
yeah.
Um so that was my rational side, and you're right, it probably was impeding on my ability to just use it creatively or something like that. So like I want like what is your workflow? I guess that's the question. Like what's your studio practice like? What's your workflow? Where does the work start? Where does it end?
Well, that's also as soon as I get as soon as I find some kind of methodology, I kind of get bored with it. I really need this unexpected serendipity going on. Um, so I'm just freaking a lot, I'm just trying to well it's
Freaking a lot.
well I'm working with all these systems and these pieces of software, and software is always written for a certain purpose, and it's always meant to do something. And I always try to find the fringes of that and trying to kind of hack it into doing something weird or funny or the way it's not supposed to work. So I'm that's kind of mainly how my approach in the whole thing.
I love it.
As soon as I find out how something works, I try to make sure that I find how it shouldn't work and how it still does, or how so just and it's a mindset. It's it's just I used to I used to love to find how machines would be tricked into doing things that they weren't supposed to do, and that was even with pinball machines or with anything very old or mechanical, that I always was looking for this part of the yeah. So basically, I'm trying to I'm trying out different things and different applications that I find. I try to combine them in a way I think nobody has combined them before.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things that when I was doing Artbreeder, everything that I did looked like Artbreeder. So I found a second and a third algorithm and kind of combined these. And then by taking the output of one, putting them into another one, you already kind of obscure the fact that it's coming out of this one. And at the same time, and that's becoming more and more of a responsibility, because I used to just fuck about, but now I really have the responsibility to keep to make it a true Ganbrood in a way. And yeah,
I find that
that's not always easy with AI, because I have just folders and stacks of images that I really like, but that don't look like anything I've ever done before, and it's so yeah.
I find that's I like how you said freaking a lot, but hacking tools and stuff like that. I find that to be a common thread throughout all artists, no matter what the discipline or practice is.
Yeah.
Every artist I talk to is interested in this. Well, at least artist like that. I
Yeah.
think it's one of the things that makes you an artist. You know, like what
Yeah.
is an artist? What is art? You know, whatever. That's all objective, subjective, whatever. Or it's all
Yeah.
subjective. I mean, but in my opinion, this is one of the things that makes an artist and separates an artist from a craftsperson. Is this wanting to experiment and break every fucking thing, like wanting to take something and be like, how's that work? Here, I'm going to use it this opposite way. And because I do the same thing, and I'm always trying to make something I haven't seen before, use materials in a way that nobody else has used them before, even physical, materials. I go to the art supply store, and in the checkout lane, people are always asking, what do you use this for? Because it's the weirdest things, and I'm like, I'm not telling you, it's like, I'm always trying to I have my own ways of using every single thing I use. So I love to hear that about the way that you work as well. I find that with digital work, and I find that actually a lot with this entire NFT community, which we didn't speak about a lot with the NFT things, but a lot of the things that I think ties the NFT community together is that willingness, or like that wanting to experiment a lot. Like we're all very experimental. And I think you have to be experimental to want to even be interested in the intersection of crypto and art, So like it's drawing the artists that experiment a lot and are always tinkering around and stuff like that. What about, and if there isn't, or I don't mean to put you on the spot at all, but like, is there any sort of message you're trying to, portray with your work? And if somebody asked me this, I would fucking hate them. But like, but like, because when I look at your work, I feel a lot, and that's not something I can say when I look at a lot of AI work. I feel like there's more to this. Like there's some sort of, I don't even want to say narrative, but when I look at your work, there's something deeper to it all. And I don't know. Well, I shouldn't say I don't know. I attribute that to the artist, obviously. So like that's kind of my question, I suppose.
Well, I think deep down inside, everybody's lonely in a way. And it doesn't matter if you're married, or if you have a family or children, or because most of what we experience is inside this bubble, which we call self. And so one of the things that humans are really love doing is trying to break out this bubble, and whether it's laughing together, or dancing together, or drinking together, or telling jokes, or making love, or there's all these ways to communicate. um, in a non-verbal way, because that's also, I mean, the good discussion like we're having now is one way to connect souls and to connect minds. I think art is no different than that. It's just my it's just me wanting to show the world who I am inside and what I'm feeling and what I'm so if I do it well, my work should be some kind of, at least partly, a blueprint of who I am, and I think that that's probably the same for most artists, if not all.
I would say so.
And
Absolutely.
there are, of course, things that I can over rationalize about these, and I just told someone that the director David Lynch, director and artist, because he did so much more. He was never big on interviews. He never, especially in the early days, he never gave interviews, and he always said the same thing. I communicate through my work, and if you want to know what I have to say, you have to see it, have to feel it, have to hear it, and that's what I have to say. I can, anything that I put out of my mouth right now, kind of, is nothing compared to how I express myself in film and in photographs and and I sometimes feel that really resonated with me when I heard that, and I'm very much a visual communicator, and of course, in a discussion like this, in a serious conversation like this, there's a lot that I want to talk about and a lot that I want to say. But in general, to everyone, saying what I mean with these images, I don't really see the point.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm literally in the middle of being told by multiple people we need longer descriptions of this and that, and like
Yeah,
you need to write more for this and that. And I'm in a
yeah,
battle right now with
yeah.
that, with them just like you need to shut the fuck up. Like,
Were you in art school?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because that's one thing that the whole narrative thing they teach you in art school, or they try to teach you.
It's that you
No?
have to write. It's that you have to
Yeah,
talk a
yeah.
lot about your
Yeah,
work. Well,
constantly
that's
blah 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 about
absolutely.
this.
It's the academic side of it all
Yeah,
has
yeah.
like completely crushed it, and yeah, it's just yeah, it's going to be a constant battle because I can't imagine that going away. That people wanting you to explain all that kind of shit. But your Lynch comparison is, it's perfect. Lynch is great. I honestly like his like philosophy more than his work personally. But and I mean that about his artwork, like because he's a true artist, like studio practicing
Yeah.
artist, like has tons of work. Some of it's very very cool. But yeah, Lynch is great, and I agree with you. I'm a visual communicator, and like I've always said, the reason that I make art in the fucking first place is because I don't know what to say ever. Like, and if I did, I would just write. I would write about it. Like, if I wanted to write about my art, I would just write a book. Like I don't get this. Like, you want me to write a book about the art, but the art exists because I can't write the book or something like that. It's just like what it's so contradictory, hypocritical, but it's just how the system is. So I feel you, man. Sorry for that fucking question. I just had to
No, no,
ask
no.
because
It's okay, and I also, but sometimes the words come after the fact. Um,
absolutely.
I I usually make things, and then I kind of take a step back and look at it, and with in interaction with others, what they have to say about it, how
Yeah,
they
helps a
perceive it,
lot.
and sometimes, I kind of find why I did it, and
Yep.
but it's very difficult to do that up front, and
Yep.
also
Isn't that
I'm
funny?
very I'm 54, but I'm a very young artist. I started calling myself a real artist, less than 2 years ago.
Hmm.
So I don't feel too much pressure right now to completely put out my vision on these things. So I got some time to think about everything.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of all that, what do you have coming up? Like you mentioned Tokyo, you'll see Mario in Tokyo. What's happening in Tokyo?
Yeah, I'm one of the 11 artists, AI artists on Bright Moments Tokyo.
Awesome. Okay. When is that?
That's in the second week of May, starting the first week of 5 to 10 May.
Okay. Bright Moments,
And
Tokyo.
yeah, I think that's going to be amazing, and I'm kind of overwhelmed with the names on the list and the whole. I experienced what these guys did in Mexico City, and I think Tokyo can only be bigger.
Yeah.
There's more people that it's so I really am focusing right now on presenting something there that should be well, great.
Yeah. Well, you have a couple
I just
months. That's nice.
Yes,
Not until
yes,
May, so that's
yeah.
cool. Like
So
that's a
I'm
nice lead up.
I'm focusing on that, and everything I'll publish and put out and mint and drop till then would be maybe some kind of study or a byproduct of what I'm doing for Tokyo.
Um, apologize if I'm overstating, but are you curating a show too?
Yes, I am. I
Can
am.
you talk about that at all or no?
um, yeah, I can give a little bit away. It's called the Freak Show. I heard you were too busy. But
Unfortunately.
it's going to be. I don't have any names yet. The list is almost there, but until we have some things in place, we don't want to give any names. But it's going to be interesting. I'm co-curating with Georg Bach, who's known as Snow Cash on Twitter and Insta. And he's a curator and an art advisor, and he has been in this digital collectibles for a long time, if that's possible, because
George, right?
Georg, yes.
Yeah. I had a
Yeah.
conversation with him in London as well, and I went to
Yeah.
his. He curated the generative show at what auction house was that?
Phillips.
Yes,
Phillips.
at Phillips
Yes.
Auction House. That's
Yeah.
right. Okay,
Yeah.
great. And so you're curating a show with him. Where will that be and when?
It will be in Switzerland, and I think it's in April.
Awesome.
In April, and it's going to be called Freak Show, and it's going to be sick as fuck.
And is that in
Oh, it's going to be
collaboration
wild.
with,
We're approaching some artists that just are the most insane and crazy people from the Web3.
is that at a gallery in collaboration with a platform? What's the deal?
Yeah.
Can you talk about it at all or no? Not yet.
Right now, it's all being
Not announced yet. Got it.
Yeah.
Fair
But
enough. No, that's cool.
it will be announced pretty soon, I guess.
Okay, cool. So
But
everybody can
it's
stay tuned for
something
that.
to keep an eye out for. It's going to be special, and I think it has a very, very strong theme compared to a lot of stuff that's going
Yeah,
on
no
right
shit,
now.
right? Word. Is there anything else that you want to give a shout out to or anything we didn't cover here in this hour and a half talk?
I'm not sure when this will be visible. I don't think there's any editing. So when will this be online?
I mean, probably in the next couple weeks, but anything you want to bring up, even if it's something that happens and then this doesn't come out till afterwards, people can go back and look. So please.
Yeah, well, I got a piece in Vertical Crypto Arts galleries in both London and there's something called the NFT Gallery in New York.
Oh yeah, cool.
And they have a place in London as well, so it's simultaneously in two cities, and that's going to be interesting show.
When does it open?
25, I think, next Friday, is it? February 25.
So February 20th. That's this Friday.
Maybe 24 in the other place, but I'm not sure because these time differences. And in 2 days, I'm going to Paris to NFT Paris, which is going to be absolutely awesome. Um, there's so many people from all over the world that I heard will be there, and I have already met most of them, but I also will be seeing people that I have spoken to but never met in real life. So very
That's
much
awesome.
looking
When is NFT Paris?
also 2024, 25
Okay.
February.
So you have a lot going on at the end of this week, and you leave a couple days for Paris. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, have fun. I mean, I didn't even know that was really going on until recently. I'll be in Dubai
Oh yeah.
next week. Yeah, for Art Dubai. Fake Whale has some presents there, minting for
Cool.
that and everything. So, but this is all great. So you're showing with Vertical Crypto Art, New York and London.
Yeah.
You'll be in Paris for Paris NFT or NFT Paris, Paris Art Week, and then Bright Moments Tokyo, May.
Yeah.
And that you're curating a show
The
in
freak
April
show.
in Switzerland. Yeah,
The
freak
freak
show. You
show.
have a
Yeah.
lot going on. You're
Yes.
busy.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, are you working from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed every day, pretty much? It's like, are you
Um,
a studio worker hard or?
depends a little bit on the. Sometimes I have weeks that I don't do anything, and then it's night and day. It's
Impossible.
it's just when it's there, it's there.
That's great.
But
Well, this has been a real pleasure.
okay, man. Thanks.
No,
Also,
welcome.
yeah, I'm also I had an exposition with Kate Voss Galleries in Switzerland,
Oh, that's great.
and there's still a couple of big items that we need a collector for, and in at NFT Paris, I'm gonna work with we're gonna work with Super Chief Gallery
Nice.
to kind of expose two pieces of that collection.
I love the Super Chief guys. Super Chief is
Yeah, they're great.
awesome. I've spoken with Ed quite a bit over the years here in LA and shit. So yeah, shout out to the Super Chief. And that's who you're going to be working with in Paris,
Yes.
like this week. Cool. Right
Yeah.
on. Well, tell those dudes I said what up, and shout out to Super
I
Chief.
will.
This has been awesome. I'm so glad we had a chance to connect. And like you were saying, meeting all these people you're going to meet in Paris or whatever, it was actually a great opportunity to meet you in London earlier this year,
Yeah.
earlier last year. I mean, blah. That and be on a panel with you. I think that panel that we were on, you can actually go back and listen to now on YouTube
Yes,
if somebody wants. So
yeah.
that's up. That was a pretty fun talk. And then I'm gonna end this, I guess, on the note of you recommended at that after party. We got talking somehow about the show Atlanta by Glover. What's his name? Danny Glover. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, thanks for that, because I had watched a little bit.
Yeah.
I watched all of it, and it's one of the best shows on TV right now. I think, at least, and it's so well done, and it's so surrealistic in such an interesting way.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, thank you for the recommendation, and we'll throw that recommendation to everybody listening to watch Atlanta. It's fucking dope. Is there anything else you want to say in closing here?
Nothing that comes to mind right now, but
all right.
No.
Well, thank you so much again, man. This has been a real
thank
pleasure.
You too. It was fun having me here, and I think we touched a couple of really interesting subjects that I love to talk about, and hope to see you somewhere in real life soon, so we can talk more.
Absolutely, we'll definitely be seeing you, and we definitely want to involve you more with the fake whale. So you'll be seeing more from Ganbrood with the fake whale. Everything going on. So cheers, everybody. Thanks. Until next time. Thanks a lot, Gan.
Thank you.
Peace. Bye, everybody.
Bye.